Hey, what's up guys, Jackson here at Toasty DIY, and today we're going to be reviewing and unboxing the DJI Osmo Action 5, and this is actually the vlog creator kit. Let's go ahead and get into it. So this is a camera that came out pretty recently. I believe it was September of 2024, and once again, this is the Action 5 from DJI. I've actually been a GoPro guy pretty much my whole life, but I do have the Osmo Pocket 3 at home, and I've absolutely loved that camera. It's amazing in really every way. I've had like no complaints about it. The reason I got this is just because I do a lot of content that would really benefit from being able to like mount the camera on like my head or my chest, just something to be able to move around with the camera or capture POV without having to constantly move, like a tripod. So that's kind of the main reason I wanted this. And also I just hated, I had a GoPro Hero 9 and I was constantly having to use my DJI mic and sync up the audio, which is just a whole nother layer of editing. And on top of that, the camera constantly overheated or would randomly decide like not to record certain clips after I finished recording them. So it's not like I could really see it coming. I just go to press the stop recording button, it would kind of freeze up and then decide to delete like half of the clip I just recorded, which obviously is not great when you're capturing, action events that you don't want to have to redo. So this camera has a lot of really good features about it, and I made a full print off in comparison that I'll show you guys in a second here that are going to actually compare the newest GoPro Hero 13 Black Edition versus the Action 5. So first up, we're going to go over dimensions. The Action 5 comes in at 70.5 millimeters versus 71.8 on the GoPro. The width is 44.2 millimeters versus 50.8 millimeters on the GoPro. And then the height is 32.8 millimeters versus 33.6 millimeters. So in every single regard, the Action 5 is smaller, and weight-wise, it actually weighs less too. We're looking at 146 grams on the Action 5 versus 154 on the GoPro. Now, another really big improvement over the GoPro is the screens. The Action 5 actually has dual OLED displays. They're both touchscreens, so the front and the rear, which is the main display. And we're looking at 1.46 inches on the front and 2.5 inches on the rear versus the GoPro that only has the rear touchscreen and the front's only 1.4 inches and the back is 2.27. Now, battery life, there's supposed to be some big improvements as well. We're looking at essentially lithium-ion batteries for both. For DJI, they call theirs just the lithium-ion 1S 1950 milliamp hour, which is supposedly rated for 4 hours of battery life, and I assume that's probably just at 1080p. Now, GoPro calls theirs the Enduro 1900 milliamp hour battery, and that one's rated for 2.5 hours at 1080p or 1.5 hours at 5.3K, which we'll talk about in a minute. Now, another really cool part is we do have higher operating temp ranges and lower operating temp ranges on the DJI. We're looking at negative 20 degrees Celsius all the way up to 45 degrees Celsius, while the GoPro can only do negative 10 degrees Celsius up to 35 degrees Celsius. So that extra 10 degrees Celsius may very well be the difference of your camera overheating or not. And for the people who are trying to do diving and underwater clips, the DJI can do double the amount of depth at 20 meters versus the GoPro at only 10 meters. And one thing that's cool is the DJI actually has a built-in barometer and a depth meter as well. So it can actually tell you how deep the camera is underwater and even stop and start recording whenever you submerge versus emerge from the water. Now, both of these cameras take micro SD cards. They do require a fairly fast SD card. You really want to be looking at, I'd say like 150 megabyte per second read-write speed or higher. So spend a little bit on those SD cards, especially if you don't want to have corrupt footage. And what's cool about the DJI is it actually has 47 gigs of internal storage, while the GoPro has never had internal storage. The 47 gigs can be really useful if you forget your SD card, if it breaks, or if you simply run out of storage, you can have it bleed over onto that 47 gigs of internal. Now here's where we get into some nerdy tech specs. So the sensor on the DJI is a 1.3 inch CMOS sensor versus the GoPro at a 1.9 inch CMOS. The DJI is f2.8 while the GoPro is f2.5 aperture. The DJI has a little bit less aspect ratio. It has 16:9, 9:16, and 4:3, which are very typical. The GoPro has the exact same ones, but they also added an 8:7, which I'm not super familiar with where you'd use that. I've never used that aspect ratio before. One thing that's crazy is the photo res on the GoPro versus the DJI. The DJI can do 40 megapixel photos, while the GoPro can only do 27.13 megapixel. Now, for the important part that a lot of people care about, the max video resolution, the DJI can do 4K at 120 FPS, 1440 at 120 FPS, and 1080 at 240 FPS. Now the GoPro steps it up and it can do 5.3K at 60 FPS or 4K at 120 1440p at 240, and then 1080 at 240. The DJI records in a very typical format of MP4 HEVC, while the GoPro records in a newer version of H.265 HEVC. The GoPro does have a little bit of advantage in their bitrate, and that's probably due to the 5.3K. The GoPro can do 120 megabytes per second, while the DJI can do 100 megabytes per second, which are both pretty high bit rates. Now, both of these cameras are going to have some insane stabilization. They probably have image stabilization and gyroscope, but DJI calls theirs Rocksteady 3.0 Plus on this camera, and then GoPro is now up to the Hypersmooth 6.0. They both have 3 built-in mics on them. They both have USB Type-C, they both have Wi-Fi 6, and they both have Bluetooth. Now, one of the big advantages of the DJI is it has native DJI Mic 2 support. While the GoPro has Bluetooth and it can use something like the Mic 2 and probably some other aftermarket mics, I have heard that it isn't always the greatest connectivity, and I like the idea of being able just to turn on the DJI mic and have it auto sync up to the camera. And then the very last tech spec we have is that they both essentially use a GoPro mount. However, the DJI uses that mag style mount that basically attaches to the bottom and then gives you a GoPro style mount. Well, of course, the GoPro is, the original mounting system for the GoPro lineup, and supposedly in the 13 they also do have the magnetic mounting option. So here's the actual Action 5, good looking camera. We do have like a little lens cap that I assume twist, what does it say? Tighten the lens protective cover. Oh, no, it quite literally is just a lens cover. It says it's FOV 155 degree. I don't know if this one will have the same features that GoPro has where it can do like all the different view modes. I would assume it would. I'd be shocked at an action camera that doesn't. We got a giant record button on top. I really love the texture of this camera. It's almost kind of like a speckled design. We have our power button on the left-hand side. And then let's see what we got over here. Now to open the DJI, it's pretty, fairly intuitive. So you basically push down on this, and then you kind of just slide up with your nail. I think it's a little bit easier to open than the GoPro, than the GoPro 9. Like I said, I'm comparing a lot of what I had to the 9. I've not owned the 13, but we have our micro SD card slot right here. We have our large battery compartment there as well. This is the magnetic mount I was talking about, which I think we should have inside this box. We'll go ahead and verify real quick. All right, so we got a USB-C to USB-C cable that's gonna be for charging and also data transfer in case you don't wanna take out your SD card, or maybe you don't have an SD card reader and you wanna hook it directly up to your phone or laptop, or tablet even, you have the choice. We have like a typical, kind of like a GoPro style screw, except it only has 2 wings rather than, the typical 3 of the GoPro. Now I'll show you guys that mount, which I'm very unfamiliar with, by the way, but we're gonna learn about it. So it's basically, this is just plastic. It's probably some sort of ABS. I can see we have like some rubber feet here, but essentially, and I've heard that this is directional, so we'll see. Oh yeah, it really is a magnet, yeah. Wow, that's strong. So basically the magnet goes on there and then it clips too. So it's not being held on, that was something I was worried about. It's not being held on with just a magnet. It does actually have safety releases. And the magnet's pretty strong, as you guys can see. It actually kind of gets on there for you, and then you just have to press down. That's a cool little mount. And then it just uses typical GoPro stuff, which I was unaware of. When I bought this, I thought I was gonna have to buy all new accessories, but I was very hyped to find out that it just uses GoPro mounting. And inside the box, they do include one of their adhesive mounts, so just probably like a 3M adhesive, although I don't see 3M branding, so they may not be partnering with them. This one has a little bit of curvature to it, so it's really designed for, not flat surfaces. So maybe like a helmet or like a fender of a car or something like that, even a windshield. And then we have our battery. All right, so battery is in. Turns on pretty quick. I do know that I've heard that this camera comes on a little quicker than the GoPros do. I gotta say, this OLED screen looks awesome. So this right here should be our DJI Mic 2. We're extremely familiar with these because we have 2 Osmos Pockets that we use pretty regularly. I use one at home and then we use one for PC Bros. And on top of that, we also use the DJI Mic 2s here at the office for filming, and we have 3 or 4 sets of the DJI 1 mics. So very familiar with them. Obviously those ones are sets of 2 with the receiver. What's cool about this though is it's literally just the mic and it pairs directly to the camera, no problem. We get a really nice little carrying case, which I don't know if that would normally come with the camera. I would assume it wouldn't. That might just be an accessory. Yeah, it literally is for the mic specifically, but you could definitely fit the Action inside of here. It does come with a very nice wind filter that I've used on my motorcycle, and it works great. You can still hear yourself very clear. It cuts out wind noise really nicely, and it's very small. You can even do recording straight to the mic, which is super useful. That's how I used to record with my GoPro, and then I would just sync up the footage. And it even has a link button, so you can link to other DJI devices that are compatible with this mic, and you can use this mic with the GoPro 13 as well. All right, now we just have one last thing to unbox, and that is the handle, which I will say this is the part I'm going to be least familiar with. You know, we've had like some DJI, you know, gimbals and stuff here before, so I kind of assume it's just like a very mini, much more intuitive version of that, because there's no gimbal or anything. It's quite literally just a charging handle, something to kind of hold on to. And also it does have like a built-in tripod. It's a very basic device, and you can also connect it to a tripod as well, which is pretty cool. So yeah, as you guys can see, this does have some built-in capabilities of, you know, honestly doing all kinds of different angles. It's pretty cool. It's just like a little swivel head. This does connect directly to the actual Action 5, so you don't have to use like the GoPro style mount, which I think is kind of a cool little thing. So maybe keep a couple of these on hand so you can use all your GoPro accessories. And honestly, most other things, like even the adhesive mounts, will probably use this. And then basically what you do is you're gonna, okay, yeah, just kind of hard to open, so probably have to kind of work that loose over time, but it opens to reveal just a singular USB-C. There's nothing else in there, very basic. Yeah, you basically just take this. You're actually gonna be charging now, so you can charge your Action 5 with this handle, and I think it gets you like an extra hour or two of battery life. Because of that, you can just do this. So you can still get 90-degree recording, you know, in a pretty standard way, which is pretty cool. I mean, you know, they didn't have to add that, so I'm glad they did. And it's pretty good looking. It even has a couple of buttons on here, like powering the camera on and off. We can do recording, QS, I don't know if that's maybe quick shoot or something, and then C, that might be like mode. These could all just be mode changers. All right guys, so I'm doing some outside recording right now. I'm doing 4K 60 FPS. First thing I did was go into the settings and turn that bitrate up. Kind of like GoPro, you have two choices. You have standard bitrate and then high bitrate. And the high bitrate's just gonna be a little bit harder to film, but you're gonna get overall better quality. Basically just allows, you know, like a higher encoding to your SD card. And I'm actually surprisingly using a cheaper micro SD card right now. I'm using a, I think it's a SanDisk, one of their like ultra SD cards, like 128 gig for like probably 20 bucks or less. But I did buy like a nice SD card for this. I bought a PNY that's like rated for 170 megabytes a second. I think for a 256 that was like 40 bucks, which to me for a micro SD card is kind of expensive, but hey, if you're in the photography game, you know that's pretty cheap for an SD card. All right, so now we're doing wide, so should be able to see a little bit more of me in the background. We're still doing 4K 60, and we are using the rock stabilization, but we're only using, I think it's a standard 3.0. All right, we're now on ultra wide, and definitely looks pretty wide. And then we're gonna try out some more video, and later on, don't worry, we're gonna be testing out the image stabilization by actually putting it on like some vehicles. I might even put it like on my Gator and ride through the yard later where it gets pretty bumpy. Kind of low light test, and you know, I should be getting some more tests like actually in the dark later. That's my plan at least, but you know, hey, sometimes it doesn't pan out, so I figured I'd go ahead and just kind of show you guys. But yeah, it's not like super low light in here, but don't let the camera fool you. It's definitely darker than this, and that's kind of what a big selling point of this camera is you know, it's supposed to be really good for low light situations. So yeah, this mount's pretty, it's not the greatest honestly, but we are using the DJI mic now, if you couldn't tell. Definitely sounds a lot better. Try not to talk super loud into these DJI mics because they actually pick up sound like talking really well. They have what's called a low cut filter that does an amazing job at filtering like unwanted sounds out. So I have a really cheap, you know, head mount on right now, and currently I'm running rock stabilization. There it is, rock stabilization plus. I want to give that a go. And we're running the ultra wide 4K 60 view. Oh, I just had a massive bug fly in my face. I hope you guys got to see that, because I did not enjoy it. Oh, it's bumpy. It will only extend out like 1.5 feet. But normally this would look really cool because you can extend it out like super high above you. But yeah, I think the image stabilization is working pretty good, but I won't really know until I review the footage. And I think this is basically the max. I think we can turn on like a sport mode, but yeah, I don't think that's on right now. So 60 FPS, 4K, rock stabilization plus, and we're on the ultra wide mode. Seems like it looks pretty good.
Yeah, hopefully the audio's all right. I don't see why it wouldn't be. It is facing directly towards the wind, I will say. Like, the actual mic is sticking out of the bottom of my helmet, so, you know, I don't know how much of that wind is going to be able to cut and how much voice it's going to get, but we'll find out. Plus, so basically, from what I know, it's pretty close to like the max, if not the max image stabilization. So, yeah, I mean, from what I could tell in some of the preview videos, it looks pretty darn good. Wind reduction, or, you know, could it be better? I mean, like I said, it's the standard mic too that we use a ton for the YouTube channel, and you know, there's certain times where they'll pick up more wind than you really want them to, but I'd say 99% of the time they're very impressive. Like it's hard to say it could get much better, basically.
Okay guys, so it's probably kind of hard to tell, but this is pretty much the last test in the video. So we're doing some actual like low light testing. And I know right now, I mean, at least on the camera, it looks like it's still pretty bright out, but it's actually probably only about 20 minutes until it's pretty much nighttime and we don't really have you know, any sun left. But yeah, the skies are very cloudy and I think it's like 8:30 p.m. And you know, to really show it off, the shed is very dark, which I think this kind of does it justice because the camera hasn't adjusted yet to be able to see. But like right now, I can see this better on the camera than I can actually like in real life. Okay, so this is just me not changing any settings. We're just still 4K 60. And as you guys can see, it looks pretty dark. So, but let's try out the low light mode. All right, so this is just a couple minutes later. It's gotten a little bit darker, but this is the quote unquote super night mode. And it still looks pretty dark in the shed on the camera. It definitely is brighter than it was before, but I don't know if it's capturing detail very well. It definitely, like I can definitely see some grain, like a good amount of film grain, you know, in the spots that I can like barely see in. So it seems like it works, but it may be a little more suited for like kind of like street nightlife view where you still have some lighting coming in. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you check out Toasty Bros, Toasty Clips, and if you want to buy a gaming PC or even an office PC, check out PCBros.tech. That is our PC selling business. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.